The renowned author and Nobel laureate Ivan Bunin spent his life trying to map what we often called the Russian soul. It is a cultural temperament built on a strange contradiction, a profound, almost crushing gloom, sitting right alongside an exquisite capacity for artistry. To explain how this mindset actually forms, Bunin created an autobiographical avatar named Arseniev. As a boy, Arseniev is defined by three traits. He is incredibly sensitive, physically delicate, and prone to deep, inexplicable melancholy. The novel acts as a psychological map of his life. We watch this specific, fragile emotional baseline evolve as Arseniev moves chronologically through childhood, boyhood, and finally into his youth. Arseniev's sensitivity isn't a static trait, it's a living thing, changing as it strikes the world. The book maps what happens when a life of total, naive isolation begins to graze against a harsher, more complex reality. Arseniev's journey begins in the absolute freedom of the Russian countryside. His earliest days are spent wandering through sweeping, idyllic landscapes, untethered from the demands of civilization. But being raised entirely inside this kind of natural perfection creates a developmental vacuum. Without any friction or conflict, a child remains ignorant of how complex human society actually operates. Because this starting point is so pure and uncomplicated, any future attempt to integrate him into the outside world will not feel like an education. It will be experienced as a traumatic disruption of everything he knows. During his earliest years, Arseniev's inner circle is remarkably small. It is populated exclusively by his immediate, loving family and the local peasants who live and work near their estate. Inside this isolated group, his delicate nature is treated as an advantage. Without the threat of judgment or cruelty, his high sensitivity allows him to absorb immense, overwhelming joy from simple interactions. His daily routine involves playing freely in the fields, experiencing a rush of unbridled happiness, and existing in total harmony with his immediate environment. A sensitive child will naturally thrive as long as they remain inside this protective bubble. The danger to their psyche lies entirely in the expansion of that radius. That expansion inevitably arrives when Arseniev is packed up and sent away from the countryside to the town, specifically to begin formal schooling. The moment he encounters strict institutional authority, his ignorant joy vanishes. He is instantly thrust into a state of active struggling, replaced by intense anger at the rules placed upon him. His idyllic upbringing directly fuels this resistance. Because he knows the feeling of total rural liberty, he develops a deep antipathy toward the rigid, unforgiving structure of urban education. This friction is entirely unavoidable. The absolute freedom of the rural environment simply cannot exist within the strict confines of societal instruction without causing a massive psychological conflict. Eventually, Arseniev sheds his boyhood completely, stepping out of the classroom and into the vast, unregulated sphere of youth and high society. This model shows a central point enveloped by external pressures: family, school, and society. When Arseniev's raw sensitivity is forced into this dense outer ring, it splinters. Instead of finding simple joy, he is hit with overwhelming thoughtfulness and frustration. The environment demands that he navigate a complex web of adult human relationships, leading directly to a series of intense, unforgettable early romances. Amidst all this emotional turbulence, he reaches a critical milestone: the publication of his first poem. It is the moment he stops being an angry, resistant student and officially becomes an observant creator. The wider world ceases to be an enemy to fight against. Instead, it becomes a dense emotional landscape for him to document, process, and mold into art. By the end of this journey, we see the final iteration of Arseniev, an artist shaped by the friction of pleasure, anger, sorrow, and joy. There is a stark contrast between his two extremes. On one end, there is the pristine, ignorant simplicity of his rural childhood. On the other, the dark, thoughtful frustration of his youth in society. neither of these states could produce a great writer on their own. The idyllic past holds value specifically because it was violently disrupted by the demands of the future. The architecture of a true Russian soul, and perhaps of great art itself, relies entirely on that collision. The foundational, delicate joys of youth are only part of the story. It is where they strike the harsh complexities of the wider world that the artist is actually born.